Welcome to Modern Marketing Messages, the leading podcast discussing the latest and greatest in both online and offline marketing tactics, strategies, and trends. I'm your host, Taylor Karg, marketing content writer at AmericanEagle.com. Today, we're going to explore the power of using video content in your marketing strategy. To do that, I have here with me Matt Gill, Director of Creative Services at Burn the Boats, and Stuart, Hicar, creative producer at Burn the Boats. Welcome, you guys. Thank you so much for coming today.
Wow, thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us. We're finally in the podcast studios. I know when this was being built, I looked by, I was like, oh my God.
Oh, every time we're in this building and walk by the little glass door and look inside at all the great jewels of equipment you guys have.
Everyone giggling and having such a good time.
Soon enough, we'll be let into the vault. Soon enough.
Yes, and what people don't see behind camera is a podcast, like director, producer. This is like I worked in radio.
Unbelievable team. I was asked if I wanted water when I got it.
It was incredible.
Can you believe this?
Water.
And as if people couldn't tell just by what happened, I'm very excited about today's episode because you guys crack me up so much. So I'm super excited. Okay, so let's talk about Burn the Boats. Can we explain kind of why we're here? If we're talking about the power of video content and video marketing, what's Burn the Boats? What are your guys' backgrounds? Tell me everything.
Yeah, so we are a full-service video production company started in 2007. I used to work for CBS television and started the company back in 2007 to bring, video directly to forge that gap between, customer and brand back in 2007. And so we have a great staff of writers, producers, editors, everything the team to put together great campaigns. So.
Yeah, for sure. I would say the big differentiator or the big thing to look at with us is like the writing and content creation skill that we have. Pretty much everybody on the team has a long background history of either live performance, writing, comedy in some sort of aspect. And while not everything we produce is going to be a laugh out loud riot, slapping the table, ruining the mics and everything, we definitely do have a lot of really, really talented people creating interesting content for pretty much any brand who wants to walk through our little door.
Yeah.
How many people do you guys have at the company now?
Well, it depends on what shoot we're doing.
Okay, gotcha.
So, we have, our on people.
Like go-tos.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then we have, when we shot Toyota, a project for Toyota, there was like 75 people on set.
Wow.
Sometimes, and then we'll have smaller shoots where there's just a few people, and we have
it's really like a scaling boutique kind of thing, right?
Gotcha.
Where if it's a smaller company, you don't necessarily need 4 writers coming up with something to sell a single product, especially
too many cooks in the kitchen.
Exactly, you're going to ruin it. It's going to taste terrible, and I'm going to put garlic powder in it no matter what.
He loves garlic.
Yeah, that's a huge part of the company. Is my love for garlic.
Yeah, you got to chop it thin.
But yeah, it really is one of those things that stretches and constricts depending on the project size and budget.
Man.
Can you guys tell me each about like your backgrounds? How'd you get into this? Kind of where did you start your careers that blossomed into this Burn the Boats?
Ooh, after you, sir.
Sure. Yeah. So I went to the University of Illinois for advertising. Right.
Gotcha.
So it was like the #1 school of advertising in the country. And they're like the only people I've ever been able to say that to because nobody cares, no one's ever asked me.
I went to Mizzou and they're all about journalism. So I'm like, I say that and then it's the same. It's like no one else besides Mizzou people care.
Yeah. So I thought people were going to care. Now my dad didn't even care. You know what I mean? I'm like, so #1, he was like, have you earned money yet?
Yeah. What do the loans look like?
Yeah. My dad said there's 6 kids in my family. He said, you can go to any school, any college you want to, as long as it's the University of Illinois.
Oh, okay. All right. The option is yours.
The option is ours. So went to school there and then came out and was in actually media sales, worked in radio, worked in television at CBS television. I remember sitting at my computer looking at like the wall and there was it had a cast up, and I was from Second City in high school and loved comedy and I've also loved advertising ever since I was a little kid. I loved like the Bud Light, like Rodney Dangerfield campaigns and like Spuds McKenzie and like just like all those fun.
Right, you were a beer chugging little boy.
I did. It was like alcoholism early. You know what I mean? I was like, all the signs were there. Mom, you should have told me that the devil was in that bottle. You should have told me. But I wasn't. I believed, and marketers, got me. But yeah, so always loved advertising and went into, advertising, and then was at CBS television, and then left CBS to start Burn the Boats when I saw broadband internet. Kind of like I could see like, oh, we don't need a television to connect us anymore. Like, we're going to be able to have brands talk directly to people. And I'm like, now we can write great content and create stuff. And it was like kind of the democratization of like creative. I saw it was an opportunity. So started Burn the Boats back in 2007. And actually I met Tony, who owns, this company with his family, Mike and everyone. And introduced me to Dave McNeil at WeatherTech, and that was our first client.
Oh,
and
awesome.
Then from there on, it was fun and games and, helping.
All the above.
All the above. So,
yes. And then a few years down the road, of course, little old me comes out smiling. Little cherubic, and I moved to Chicago about a decade ago for college originally. I went to Loyola. Go Sister Jean.
Sister
big
Jean.
Shout out. That's right. I had a long conversation with her on my my tour when I went there, and it made me go to the school because she was so nice. And little did I know, she wouldn't ever talk to me again. I'd never see her again. They have her somewhere up there.
Care less.
Stored away in like a hyperbaric chamber, ready for the final four. So I went there, and I went there for film, digital media production, and then with a marketing minor because I've always loved making movies and writing and comedy and performance pretty much my entire life. And I also came from a place where my dad was like, you can go to school, but if you don't get a degree that will get you a job, the disappointment in your mother's eyes will be palpable. And so it was like, it was pretty realistic, the idea that Chicago's kind of a hub, like a mecca for advertising in America. And so I kind of wanted to parlay the like, I'll get to do some of the stuff I really like to do, some of the creative, the fun stuff, but I want to make sure I have all this education core behind it so that when I finally do get a big boy job somewhere, I know what I'm talking about and can back up anything that I might be doing. And I went to the Second Cities Film School while they were doing that. Got some nice little writing award dealies, and Matt snatched me up from there. And
I was going to ask how the dynamic duo came about.
Matt reached out to Second City and was essentially like, I just think, do you have creative people? Like, what are your, and they were like, we have so many creative people. But the amount
Take
of second,
your pick.
exactly.
The amount I want one that runs on guilt though.
Yes,
that's how we ride.
And God, is it drilled in there deep somewhere.
It's an engine.
Guilt and garlic.
Yes, we run on guilt and garlic.
Thank you. Wow. Where were you? That's an incredible. But at Second City, there's a ton of creativity, but there isn't a ton of creativity that also understands core marketing principles. There's a lot of people who are like, I'm going to hit this ball out of the damn stadium. And you're like, not everybody needs that. Like sometimes you just need a single base hit that works really well. And I think that's where I come in. I don't want to, name myself as the single base hitter guy, but that's I can write at a bunch of different proficiency levels. And it's kind of been an absolute joy working with Matt because we do get a lot of different clients at different sizes and in different industries. So the amount of experience that I've garnered over the past couple of years just writing for law firms, like hospital spots. We did some stuff in the American Eagle building itself. They've been so gracious every now and then, sending a client our way to deliver some really, really fun work. And then, of course, every now and then we get to do some absolutely insane, crazy stuff where I'm like, I can't believe someone's paying us to make this thing. And so, it gets to scratch that itch of creativity while also doing something that I'm proud enough I can tell my dad about over dinner, and he goes, okay. That's the dream.
Yeah. And marketers, we will get to talking about video marketing, but this is important. So the reason why I wanted to hire someone, from Second City is, improv comedy, and in that moment with stand-up, because I did stand-up for like 10 years, like clubs and colleges all over the country, and improv. It's that when someone does live comedy, they know what earns a laugh. Yeah. And like what we're doing sometimes when we write this and we'll talk about the different forms of video, like not all of it's funny, but there is an exchange of value. Like we will give you a laugh. We will entertain you. We will keep you engaged if you listen to our pitch. It's almost like when you're walking into Costco, if you just had a bunch of boxes of knives, or if you had Chris Farley selling knives over here. Like, where are you going to sell more knives?
Like,
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, you're going to go watch. Oh,
Dangerous knife salesman.
Yeah.
A clumsy man to be selling knives, but I'm on board with it.
I will watch that a little bit longer, and then I might learn about the features and benefits of these knives, and I might buy the knives.
Exactly.
You know?
And hopefully by the end, you don't even realize that you've learned about all those features and benefits. You're like, that was a really funny ad for, and you remember the name of the business, and you come back looking forward to the
humor
future.
works for me every single time.
Of course,
And
yeah.
So that's why, when we're, talking about having you guys on the podcast, Matt sent over a bunch of examples of your guys' work. And I would say most of them were the funny ones. There was a few more serious ones, but I actually laughed out loud, like in every single one.
Well, we know you have good taste. This is what we do know, Taylor. We know you've got good taste. Brian as well.
Yes, thank you, Brian.
Yeah.
Brian behind the boards. Big shout out to Brian.
Yes, big shout out to Brian.
But yeah, with that same transaction, we were talking about how folks with a comedy background know how to earn a laugh. Maybe even more importantly, they know what doesn't work, because anyone who's ever done comedy has bombed, and that is a very important experience that you will have forever. Even when you're the best you can possibly be, every now and then it's not going to click, and you'll just walk off stage and go like, what is my life? What am I doing here? And sometimes when you're writing a script and you can say to yourself like, I know this kind of material, I know this will bounce off everyone watching it, and you can solve that problem before you ever get to set or before you're in the editing process, anything like that. Like, that is the kind of skill and I don't know, the important little magic that doing comedy can bring to all of your work.
And it's taste, right?
Yeah.
Like what you're hiring in a producer is taste.
Yeah.
Really. So if you have someone, like Stu is like I have a very high standard when it comes to like comedy, when it comes to production, like just being around the people that I have for the past 10 years. And when I sit and write with Stu, I'm like, this guy's brilliant. You know what I mean? Like, this guy is he's like Mozart. You know what I mean? It's like listening to the notes. I'm like, oh, I love the way your brain went that way, and then it went that way.
But just like Mozart, I can still appreciate a good fart joke. It's still in there. So
absolutely. So it is when you work with someone who has bombed, right?
Yeah.
And who understands what will work, what won't work in the capacity of, we're talking about a social media marketing kind of landscape, that we can help mitigate risk for clients, because we're not just doing something crazy.
We're not going in blind and going like, this might work.
It follows a formula of like, attacking pain points. We do a creative brief in the beginning to understand a lot about their business, and then we dress it up. And then so that people don't really understand they're being sold to, and they're being entertained, but we are selling to them the entire time. So it's valuable to work with someone who can entertain while we inform.
Yeah,
and have we talked enough at you yet?
So now this is a timeshare.
Yeah.
Now we're gonna have you sign right here. No,
you guys, this is awesome.
This is really a sales presentation about.
And that was the perfect leeway into one of my next questions. But before I get to that, I want to ask, what is the story behind the name of your company?
Oh, yeah.
I saw this on your website. I know we talked a little bit about it. So I want, everyone who is listening to hear that story as well.
Yeah. So Brian, and post, if you can add a little bit of ominous music here, if you'd like. If not, we could leave it dead quiet. But the ancient generals are master motivators. And when the boats would land upon enemy shores, they would order the men burn the boats. The only way home is through victory, right? So that's an analogy. I just
medieval.
That is the energy you're going to give from us in a pitch meeting.
Absolutely.
It's going to be scary and dark and ominous.
Yes. But it's really an analogy to when we take on a project, we're going to finish it. So it's like when we're with a brand, we're kind of going to war. We're going to war for people's attention. We're going to war with people for sales and leads. Like there are competitors out there every day who wake up in the morning and are trying to do the best they can to put you out of business, and and when you wake up in the morning, if you have a house full of kids, you're like, this has to work, like we will finish the production, and we really see it as a team that once we work with you, we burn the boats. Like we're in
there's no turning back. We're on this with you, this journey with you, and the only way that we're going to be happy at the end is with success and earnings and reaching that barrier.
Yeah.
I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So before we get into all the questions I had for you guys today about video marketing, I kind of want to set the stage and learn more about your guys' creative process and how you go through, from beginning to end. We'll try to keep it a little speedy.
Yeah,
Sure.
I have a lot of questions for
No
you guys.
problem.
And I just wanted to learn more about.
We just got out all the good stuff.
Yeah.
We're just the script is over.
No, I just want to learn more about, what you guys do from beginning to end.
Yeah,
Sure.
for sure. Yeah. So when we have a first interaction with a client, we do a needs analysis with them. We send them a creative brief. And we really go through this document to understand their business. And, that's, the very serious process of understanding their pain points of the customer, about their brand, what they've done in the past, what works, what's not, all these different, to understand what differentiates them in the market, the marketplace, their unique selling proposition, all the elements, the key metrics of how we're going to, what does success look like? What are we trying to accomplish? It can be a business to business video. It could be, direct to consumer, we learn all of those things.
And I think it's important to also clarify that this isn't your classic marketing spiel on the business. This isn't the kind of talk that they're going to be having with a potential client or anybody out in the world when they get asked about their business. We want the honest truth and the things that they know truly about their company and about their audience and about, again, those pain points so that we can really speak to them truthfully. So often, people want to dress up some things about the company so that it all sounds great, but it's no, we want to know even what's behind that little curtain there because maybe that's a great selling proposition for us that we just don't know about yet.
Yeah.
So it's about getting down to the very ground level. So we're essentially hopefully standing at the same place as people working at the company, people founders of the company, so that we can speak like we have been with them the entire time when we finally do get to a writing or creative process, which is the next step in the process.
Yeah, yeah. And ultimately, my background has been sales, and I've done, thousands of these video projects. It's figuring out, how does this company make money? Right? Really, at the end of the day, even it's funny, I've been on sales calls with Tony, who owns this company. I've heard him say, well, if that's not going to make you money, then why are you going to do it?
Yeah.
So
what's the point of owning a business,
Right. So
fair.
It's, right. So
we're in America, remember?
Yeah. So we reverse engineer.
We don't do anything for fun.
No.
So we reverse engineer how that is made, whether it's a lead, whether it's a sale, how they're really making money, and uncover maybe with a business that they're trying to recruit people for jobs. Video can solve a lot of different problems. For these purposes, we're kind of talking about the social media marketing with videos that we can go out. Hopefully we'll talk about it too, is how that works. And, but
defining success is a huge part of that early step, just seeing what is the thing where if you saw this, you would say, gosh, they did a great job. And then we want to go 10% over that, you know? Yeah. And that's at least the goal. But once we figure out what we're trying to accomplish here, then we get to do the actual, the really fun part for me, at least, because Matt comes from the sales background. I come from the writing background. And so we get to do these pitch sessions where everybody gets to, come up with their big list of crazy ideas and throw them at each other. And 99% of those ideas are absolute garbage. We'll throw these away. That's too crazy. That's insane. That's too funny. We can't put that on TV, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. And then a couple of them are the ones that really stick, and everyone's like, oh, hold on a minute. Let me talk that out. Let's talk. And this idea. Oh, and that. And once you feel people in a room bubbling, to be and here's another idea that goes with that. That's when you have something. And we collect a couple of those, and that's what we bring to the client, are those ideas that every single one of them we're really excited about. Yeah. There are no losers in the bunch. It's just about what do they, as the greatest expert on their brand and company, think of as that's the one. I've got it. No problem. Let's lock it in. And once they make that decision, then we're going to come up with, I guess, it's sort of a dual prong system. We come up with a main video, and then we normally do a suite of retargets as well. Oh, cool. Because again, this has to do mostly with the social media kind of advertising that we're talking about here. Yeah. But most people are going to skip your video. It's, if you don't expect that to happen, you're living in a fantasy world. Nobody likes commercials inherently. And if you are, you're a little freak out there. I'm sorry. You're a freak. Yeah, exactly. It's just
the little kid out there is watching beer commercials.
Yeah, exactly.
And being
one day I'll drink like those frogs.
I'm going to live on a pond and drink in a raft with the rest of my unemployed friends.
But so with those retargets, it's essentially a creation from the very beginning, assuming that, hey, this first piece that we create, someone might just skip through it, even if they might be our perfect target audience.
Yeah.
So we create a suite of these retargets to say, hey, we know you watched the first 5 seconds of this thing. We're going to catch your attention even quicker on this next one that's maybe only 15, 30 seconds, which is a much smaller buy-in for most of an audience. And if they get a second piece of recognition going, I've seen this guy before, or I've seen that product before, I've seen these people, this setup before, there is a much higher rate of conversion and watching that second piece, because it builds into this idea that you just sort of imagine, oh, there's a large campaign behind this. Like I'm almost missing out if I don't see something, because these keep popping up on my feed. And you don't want to do it so much that it becomes an annoyance, but there's that perfect golden area where somebody feels like, there's something happening here. I should watch this. It's interesting. They keep talking to me without becoming, oversaturated.
Yeah. And I can explain the process of that. So really, if you think about these videos as if you're a marketing person, say you're a business owner or a marketing director, and you want to go out and prospect new traffic, cold people who don't know your business. I have a product service, they don't know my business. We would create kind of these anchor videos where there's kind of spokesperson videos that has someone directly talking to camera, talking about the benefits. And there's a process in which we break down the script to like really talk about the product, how it differentiates in the marketplace, and all the benefits of it, and calls to action.
We can't give away the exact secret formula.
Yes,
will be ruined.
Yes.
But yes, there is essentially like an algorithm almost built into that script where you're like, we know that things work at these time codes in your video. We know that you need to follow this with this so that people will be interested. And we don't follow it to a T. It changes every single project, but we at least have that formula to always look back at and say, all right, we got to jump to a call to action after this joke, because people are going to be the most caught up. They're going to be right here at 45 seconds or whatever it may be.
Yeah, and data tells us that, right? Yeah. So we also look at the data as creative people of like, all right, how long have people been watching? When are people dropping off? We look at all of the campaigns that we've done, and when are people falling off? How are we going to get? When are we getting click-throughs? All that, and the data forms a lot of the creative process, for us. So, one of the big things and one of the biggest mistakes that marketers make is in the first 5 seconds that to be boring or to not, for people to skip.
Yeah, you need that attention grabber.
Right off the jump. And what we'll do is we'll film multiple variations in the opening. So to be able to A/B test those openings.
Oh, yeah.
And if you think about it as a big funnel, right? If you're a marketer, it's like all these people out there have never seen your product or your service before. And if they click, like, share, comment, we get them to engage in the post for a transaction of comedy, and entertainment, where they'll say, oh, that's funny, or this, or tag someone, or you should see this, or share it. Like, now they're in the pixel. Now we can retarget them. So now we move them down the funnel with different ancillary pieces of retargeting content that talks about one pain point. Or you can go to the frequently asked questions portion of your business, and those are all objections, right? So then we answer those frequently asked questions that are like objections of why people don't buy. And we like slowly loosen the jar,
exactly.
of like, oh, I might need solar panels. I don't know,
perfectly,
I haven't thought about it before, but now I am.
If it's done perfectly, that person should have no idea that they are slowly being funneled into the purchase place, because it just feels natural of them. Like, I've seen that company. Oh, look who's back. Wait a minute, you're right. Solar panels are good for maybe my house is perfect for it. Like, they just do all the work on their end and have no idea that really we're just like gently holding their hand and guarding them, guiding them to the garden of delights.
And there's a process to it where, we'd have this top of funnel pieces till we earn their attention. Then we earn more credibility with their solving pain points and solving problems. Then we move them down with case studies and testimonials, which gives them social proof, and that moves them closer to conversion down at the end. So it really is. It's almost like, hi, here's a digital handshake. I'm a friendly company, and we like to have fun, and we understand your pain point. We're going to laugh at it. Ha, ha, ha. Can you believe energy prices? And then, boom, we come down. And it's like, and another thing is these panels are American made. Oh, okay. And then, we move them down to, it's like, and then we have a testimonial. My name's Paul, and my energy bill was $400 a month, but then I got the You're like, oh, I'm just the Paul, I'm going to click and I'm going to talk to someone about this. Honey, that's it. That's it. Get the phone. I'm talking to the neighbor. He's gonna put that dog Paul inside, and we're calling the solar company because we're gonna live outside this summer. And we're not gonna be bullied by that damn dog anymore. That's what our content does. It has you standing up to your neighbors.
Yes. And a lot of people need that.
Yeah.
I've had some tough neighbors. But
Yeah.
no, that's great. And it's awesome because you guys do all of this. And I know we've talked about humor a lot, but like through the lens of humor and just everything that you both have been saying has been, I'm like, if I saw that on a commercial, I would 100% enjoy seeing the next commercial.
That is like the biggest thing, right? Is creating a product that they feel like we talked about, that humor is a transaction, right?
Yeah.
And it's not, we're not stealing your time with these ads. Hopefully by the end of the 30-second spot, maybe you're not the target audience. Maybe you don't own a house, so you can't buy solar panels.
Yeah.
But maybe you watched it and gave us your 30 seconds and we gave you a couple of hearty chuckles. You know, like it is a fair transaction. We're not trying to trick anybody because we do have something to offer, which is good writing, good content, and funny little bits here and there that'll make you go like, I still remember that it was a solar panel company. You know what I should do is look into solar, blah, blah, blah. You know?
And if you're an American Eagle client, you can talk to your digital marketing department representative.
Ooh.
And, you know, what we will do then is now you have all these people within your pixel. You know, like now you can retarget these people. Now you're building an audience of people. Now you can launch new products to these people. Now there's a relationship, you know, with this audience now. And we like to use the same campaign, actors and vibe and feel, because it's the connective tissue that makes you feel like a larger company. So now when we have, you know, a brand, maybe that's not that large, when they have this anchor video and people are watching it and they're like, oh, that was great. And now they're getting all these ancillary pieces throughout their journey. You know, they're like, when they see it on Instagram, they're like, this is kind of a bigger company. You know, they're like, it lends credibility and trust. And that's what high production value does. Because some people are like, what's it, two guys in a camera? Like, no, it's not two guys in a camera. You know, like
in your backyard.
There are many guys in the camera.
Many guys in the camera. There's
Very
people
smart
holding
people.
audio. You know, there's people. You know, there's many people who have left their homes and their lives and moved from small states to come here and live in poverty and create art.
To be a creative,
yeah.
I do think that is like one of those big things about that democratization of advertising that's happened with social media and, you know, the great internet, is that you can truly, there's a lot of people who want to target exact audiences for their work, you know, that like, this is the perfect customer for us, is this thing. But I also think when you have a slightly broader, more comedic piece of video that goes with your campaign, you can widen that out a little bit and you'll still catch all those great customers, but hopefully you'll catch some people where you're like, I didn't even think that they would be that interested in this, but the jokes hit really well and they went through the FAQ, they looked through the website, and now they're like, this seems like a trustworthy company. I'd love to take a look, you know, like that. While yes, you can get those very, very pinpointed cases in your pixel, you can also get so many other people that you would have never thought about with good content, because that's the handshake. That's the thing that lets them say, I'll take a look around the store. Why not?
Cold traffic prospecting, people who have never, it's how you expand your brand and expand your sales to like people who don't know who you are and have never interacted with your brand before. And also too, this is a big point. I will say, this gets me excited, Brian. I was thinking, you know,
we haven't been excited until now.
Coca-Cola talking, you know what I mean? Like it's the bipolar high that I'm on, you know? No, but here's the truth. If you have boring content, you're wasting your marketing budget.
Absolutely.
Like you are literally, if you're using carousel ads or some like whatever thing that you forced your internal team to do, that's like, you know, that you're putting way too much on this.
It's almost always I have a nephew who's pretty good with Photoshop. He can make a video for us. And you're like, no, you don't. Your nephew's not good at Photoshop, buddy. I'm sorry.
We see it all the time where people are like, well, we're doing ads or not. I'm like, can you take a look and do, you know, just take like a diagnostic look at what we're doing. Why is this not
like
working?
An audit, a little
bit. An audit, you know, we look at it and the ads are like, I'm like, these ads are not going to convert. So if you have great creative, it throws gasoline on your media budget. And really the Facebook algorithm will bless you if your content is good and people watch it. You'll actually get your cost per thousands will go down. So we've had clients who are smaller, have smaller budgets, and who blow up because the ads are so good. You know, people just like them and they're funny and people watch them and share them. And so Facebook's like, oh, this is good content. Like we're going to give this a lower CPM. This is good for the platform, you know, in a way. So
exactly.
That's I can't stress that enough, that like if you could just be wasting your budget. Like don't do anything if you're just going to have like kind of boring
You
stuff.
could have the best product in the world, and if the commercial for it that you are showing people looks kind of janky, it doesn't matter. It does not matter at all. It's the, build a better mousetrap conundrum of the 21st century is the like, you might have the best product. It does not matter whatsoever. But if you have the best commercial, that will always beat out. Content is based on merit. It really is. If more people laugh at this video than that video, the first video is going to do better. It's going to be placed more. It's going to show up on more feeds. So if there is a place to put your money and really make it count, it's video content. It's your advertising budget.
Yeah.
So we've talked a lot about humor and making things funny, but what other ways, creative, innovative ways do you guys make content, or do you suggest people make content besides it being funny to help brands, kind of differentiate themselves from the crowd?
Yeah, my number one is human connection. Like, I feel like it's, I can sound like an old man and say everyone's looking at screens all the time or whatever, but like it is a little bit true. And there is a real pull when it comes to something that feels genuine. When you have like someone from a company, we do a lot of that sort of talking heads, docu-style stuff for more serious companies where they're speaking directly to consumer or directly to another business and just being completely honest and hopefully being themselves as well. We did a bunch of series of trucking commercials looking for new drivers, and the number one thing that we wanted to capture was like the actual personality of the drivers that you would be working with in this place,
and seeing actual drivers of the company.
Exactly.
And not,
it's
just
about
the CEO or
we could always hire some
VP
absolute hottie, slick back hair, jack dude who's like, and I'm a truck driver, baby, and maybe that'll work.
Call me.
But most people sitting at home on their couch who are like, should I become a driver at this thing? If they see someone like them who's like, I was exactly like you 12 months ago, man, and this is working really great for me. I have a family. I'm silly in a weird way. I still get to dress like myself and be normal. It always works because you feel a human connection that is absent, I think, in a lot of other advertising online, especially folks who want to go for that humor sometimes try and go way too much, crank it up to 11. And you're like,
it's unrelatable.
I can't get behind this at all. I'm sorry. I just don't care. But Matt, do you have any, what do you think?
Yeah. I mean, not everything we do is comedy. There's, we do a lot of serious things, a lot of emotional things, like Stuart said, a lot of emotional connection things. And the way we see content you can attract or retain, right? So a lot of business to business is like, we have our different ways in which they're, if they're doing LinkedIn or Google ads, or like they're bringing people to a site. So now if these what we've been talking about before is like these attract videos that are going to bring cold traffic and people to your site. This is our people are there. We need to retain them, So we do like the overview videos, things like that. That are, and those will do a great job to humanize the business, right? A lot of times we want to humanize the business, and we see, just coming from a sales background too, and up the river is like, how do we make money? Making everything we do, like if it doesn't make you money, we don't want to do it, or we'll reallocate it and make recommendations on that. That like a great video should be almost a salesperson on the street. And if you're a business owner or a marketing director or a sales director, and you are not quite sure what your salespeople are saying on the street, right? You might have like a 30-person sales team or something like that. We can put together a video that talks about your business, talks about the unique selling proposition of your business and all the benefits, the features of everything that you guys do and how you solve the problem in the marketplace in a concise video where you're like, at least I know that when they send this video out to a potential customer, they know this about the business. It gives you a sense of control. And also too, it allows you to humanize the business as well. So, those are ways in which we've seen, and we've actually worked a lot with American Eagle using testimonials and case studies and like I see the Rock Commerce shirt, and we work with Sitecore, Big Commerce, all these different platforms and all the great projects, all the clients you guys have, and they've built you guys have built a big business off of those testimonials and off of those serious case studies.
But it's worth noting, a lot of those people, they're not trying to get funny ads made. They're not we don't want to be known as the hilarious company, But they do want to be the company that people immediately trust when they see their brand. And that's the humanization part. That's the, like, you're talking to a real person. You're not talking to a 100-person board who's going to make a decision with absolutely no empathy whatsoever. Like, you're talking to a real person with real hands who can really shake yours. And that's, I think, what we want to get across, number one.
And the creative process for that is similar in where we do a needs analysis with a client. Then we'll find out what the problem is they solve. We'll the whole unique selling proposition. We'll create a list of questions. We'll probably talk to some executives film that, ask those questions, prep them, and then extrapolate the best answers with an editor to weave together the best story that talks about how they solved this problem. And so they kind of know what they're getting in the upfront because we build that outline for them so they kind of understand what they're getting.
Yeah,
but those videos really do work.
And if you're a marketer at home listening, you've probably maybe been involved in one of these videos before where you're sitting in front of a camera and people just ask you questions and you're like, I was talking for 30 minutes. Like, is that going to be good? Like, are they going to be able to? One of the great skills that our company definitely has is being able to craft a story out of these little chunket answers where you're like, that was a perfect answer. But if I unite it with these other answers, what you're really doing is giving me a perfect overview of your entire business while sounding real. And while without any uhs and without any ums and without any like, well, I'm not 100% sure. It's like, it really is, you're putting a lot of trust in us to make you look good. And not always like, oh, make me look perfect, to make you look real and to make you look like the perfect representative for your company. And that's something I feel like we've always been able to achieve is sort of creating these perfect avatars out of these folks who work there. Maybe you're not getting everybody's entire story in an ad, but you are getting those really core important things about them that makes you feel like at the center, I know this person. I know this brand.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like I can relate to that a lot because one of my old jobs, I used to work and write for a magazine, and a lot of it was writing human stories on how they became a lawyer or, how they became VIP, whatever. I don't know.
VIP, whatever.
Baby. That's me.
VIPW, baby.
That's all of us in this room.
Word fudge, but VP, whatever. Yeah. And I would always, when I would interview them, either in person or over the phone, I would ask like triple the amount of questions that were needed for the article because then I was able to like pick and choose the responses that made the most sense to tell the best story.
You'll also always be surprised at those little nuggets you get where you're like, that was a very funny little story about your children that makes you feel like a normal person that I can relate with. Like, let's throw a little bit of that sprinkle on top so that people know you're not just a business robot or whatever. Right. And those are really important too, are those little flashes beyond just the advertisement that show you like, we're honest people and we like actually like doing what we're doing. I think that's always important.
So what would you guys say are some key considerations marketers should keep in mind when integrating video into their overall strategy?
Yeah, I mean, one of my professors at the University of Chicago would say, a confused customer never buys, right? And we really try to keep things simple when we're working with content sometimes, where people, they're like, we can do this and it does this and it does that and it does. What is the unique selling proposition of this? What are you solving? And there was one of the founding fathers of advertising is a guy named Rosser Reeves from the 1950s, who you came up with the unique selling proposition to keep it simple, right? And he was also this person who was a kind of a logical minded person who'd say, 4 out of 5 doctors. 4 out of 5 dentists recommend Crest, toothpaste. So it was the kind of logical piece. And then a gentleman named Bill Birnbach came around and came up with, in the 60s, came up with the emotional brand. Like, this is how you're going to feel, right? So it's like, when you're creating content, you want to be able to satisfy both parts of the mind, right? You make an emotional connection that we've been talking about, but then there's also the logical part that closes it, right? So it's like, we had this emotional exchange. This is who we are. This is the problem it solves, this is how you're going to feel now having it. Like, if I had a website done by American Eagle, I'd feel very comfortable. I would
AmericanEagle.com.
Yes.
We love it.
Yeah, I would be like, I feel good. I'm going to tell my friends.
That Tony's one hot man.
Yeah, he is. You guys do a great website, I will say. And your tea is fantastic.
But it's sort of that jumping between that left and right hemisphere of the brain, right? It's that saying, this is what we solved. This is how you'll feel when it's solved. Here are the numbers showing that we have solved it. Like, we have the data that backs it up. And here's a person who is using the product and can actually tell you how it feels as a normal person. Like, kind of jumping back and forth and using both schools, in marketing history is really, really important these days, because there isn't a particular golden, silver bullet that will always absolutely work. So it's tough because you want to be broad. You want to be able to talk to a lot of audiences and solve a lot of people's problems, but you also to be exactly the opposite, you also need to be hyper specific about some of those things.
Yeah.
And because you're not trying to sell to all 8 billion people on the face of the earth, but you are always trying to grow your audience and always trying to reach people who you think might just be right on the edge there.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's hard to say, but it's broad but specific. And that's like why you need people with great taste to tell you that is right where we need to be.
Yeah.
That's not going overboard. That's not going under. We are right in the golden zone.
Yeah. Another thing that people should take into consideration to mitigate the risk is if you're a marketing director or a business owner, you're like, this has to work. You know, if this doesn't, I have enough anxiety. Fear has brought me to make this decision, you know, like, and now I'm bringing more fear into my life by if this doesn't work, you know? So what we do is mitigate fear by creating a library, right? So when we make, like, say if we're doing a social media marketing campaign, right, to bring in cold traffic, to bring in new customers to grow your business, we'll create a split test on the opening of the main video with an A/B, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then we'll create ancillary pieces to retarget, right? So it's almost like being in an elevator and having different cables holding you up,
if
right?
One snaps,
you know, like,
we're okay. We're worried.
You know,
we're not dead.
Yeah. And we can A/B test and then take rope B and be like, you know, we're not going to allocate any of the budget to that anymore because people are loving opening A, you know? And so what we, you know, that way, if you have enough pieces of content, you can A/B and test, look at the data, see what's working, and then ride the horse in the direction it's going. That's how you scale your business.
Exactly.
Is you look at your content, we create these pieces of content. One of them is going to blow up, you know, hopefully multiples, you know, we have a really good track record and it's getting better and better. That you look at the piece that's working and then you allocate the budget to that and then you scale. So then you're getting a positive ROI, you're putting your money on that. And then as that's going, now we're creating campaign 2 that looks more like campaign 1's version that's working.
Exactly.
Because that's the pain point people are connecting to.
That's the biggest thing. And I would say there are a lot of companies who are making that first big jump into content and video creation who have, you know, they have those simpler ads like we've talked about. They had those local checkouts, you know, those small buys. And they're like, this is working, but I think I'm ready to put in a big chunk of change, make a great piece of content.
Next step. Yeah.
Exactly. But because that's their first, you know, dip in the pool, they're not necessarily 100% sure like what it is about their company and about their message that's going to resonate well. And so by giving them all of these options and this wide berth of content, we're able to say, okay, in campaign 1, we know that this is the 30% that really connected with people, that really got conversions and click through. Campaign 2 is now going to be exactly that, but scaled up.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we're still going to make it even a little bit wider outside of that. So who knows, maybe campaign 2, that original stuff's doing really well, but this new angle is hitting even harder.
Yeah.
Let's go there. It's really, you know, I've got a background in improvising, but that's what it is. It's finding what are people in the crowd laughing at. Let's follow those laughs and let's keep doing the things they like. You know, your audience is going to tell you what they like based on their interaction. Listen to it. You don't know better than them, I think is a huge message. You might know better about how to make a funny video, but you don't know better than them on whether they like it. You got to listen.
And also, too, what we think doesn't matter.
Right.
You know, it's what the market is telling us.
Yeah.
We look at the data to say, this is what's working. We could love a piece of content or it's irrelevant.
Happens all the time.
But if you're not getting the views or the engagement, then what's the point of, you know, keep spending more and more money trying to put this on air and all that stuff?
I mean, we talked about the writing process earlier with all these ideas that get thrown out that don't make it to the pitch. And that's one of those things where we're like, that's the funniest thing I've ever heard. I love that so much. This doesn't connect with the brand enough for us to even pitch it. Like, I'm sorry, retire it. And that's it sucks. It's kind of like it's killing your babies a little bit is the term. But it's like, I love this thing so much. Unfortunately,
you have to suffocate.
We got to we got to throw it out because it's not going to connect. This is a dark podcast. Get that ominous music back in here. But it's just about listening to the data, listening to your customers and coming up with the right choice based on that.
Yeah. If it doesn't sell, it's not creative. You know, where like everything we do is to help you make money or there is no relationship in the future with us. And so, you know, we've never really worked with a client that we haven't worked with again. Yeah. You know, like it really, we've never really had a one-off. Because, you know, we do a good job of figuring out, all right, how does this company make money? How can we bring more of those people in and make sure they, you know, get the return on investment?
And hopefully we're likable.
I think so.
Yeah.
I don't know if that says anything about my taste in people, but
Yeah.
Maybe this is a bad.
Yeah.
So how do
We're
you
all a big dysfunctional family.
Yeah.
We've all had
Yeah.
childhood
Yeah.
trauma. It brings us together. You know?
No, you guys are awesome. I'm loving this.
Oh.
But so how do you decide what type of tone is best for, each client? I know if there's humor involved, and then we talked about a little bit more of like emotion and human connection. How do you guys decide the tone?
I think that's mostly guided by client. I think, obviously, if you're dealing with an injury defense lawyer, something like that, it's a little bit harder to make jokes about what they're doing.
Like Peter Francis Tracy.
Exactly, Tracy. But everybody knows his name,
Although he's
right?
due for something
I
funny.
agree.
Yeah, Peter Francis Tracy, if you're watching, we might do it on the
SNL
house.
next week, okay?
Yeah.
Get you on stage, man. You're hot.
I need to get my hands on those tapes.
Yes. But like there is a little bit of room for like a dry wit in that kind of a piece, because you can still show that you are smart, that you're on top of it, that you're witty without 100% going into like your classic silly visual gags that you see in a lot of commercials that work without audio or something like that.
Yeah.
Like I don't think you would ever be put off by feeling like your lawyer is smart.
Yeah.
And so if we can give them a smart little half joke aside to put somewhere in there to put people at ease, because most of their clients are probably have just gone through something traumatic, something bad.
Yeah.
Same thing with hospitals, or we recently worked with retirement homes, that kind of an industry. Like, these aren't necessarily fun things, and they're not always like, God, let's talk about that. I'm so excited to talk about my mom's aging, that's terrible. But if we can give you a little wink here and there to be like, we've been through it, we understand too, it's a connection point, and comedy does connect people. Everybody laughs when someone falls on a banana peel, regardless of what country you're from, because we all know that is funny. And while we might not be slipping on a banana peel in a retirement home commercial, because good Lord, that would be distasteful. I do think there is a little bit of room to just connect with someone with a little bit of a wink to say, we're normal, we're here, we understand, listen to us, trust us. But again, it's all based on what the client is looking for and what the industry, I think, expects as well.
Yeah, for sure. It's an expectation that we talk about with the client, and also too, for making a library of videos, like we do this as well for our own company. We create wild videos, put them on Facebook. So that's how we scaled the company. But we also, within those retargeting pieces, have serious videos that are talking about the process of production, that talk about pain points, that talk about, a lot of different, so that we're retargeting them to show the different personality of the brand. So it's a bit of a balance, within those things. And there's business to business videos we've used that are like about, machines, what I mean? That are like,
it's a little hard to bring you in.
Funniest thing in the world. But if you're looking at a machine and then someone slips on a banana peel in the back,
God.
Mind blown.
Yeah.
Right.
So how can video content be optimized for various marketing channels, such as social media, websites, email campaigns? What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is understanding your platform.
Right.
There are so many differences. Some of them are really small. Some of them are enormous between the different places that your ad is going to run. And having a team like ours at Burn the Boats who understands those things and is able to slightly or greatly change the form of your content to fit the platform. I think the easiest one to understand right now is probably TikTok. It's one of the largest new platforms, but it also, to a lot of older marketers, is a completely confusing thing, because they're like, we have these great ads. They're not working at all.
Because they're not 6 seconds.
Exactly. They're not 6 seconds. They're not short. They're not having someone talk directly to consumer. You're not putting text on the screen. No one's hearing your video. You're also, I mean, the biggest thing that you'll see sometime, you're not even in the right aspect ratio. Your video is like across the middle of the screen.
It looks like a commercial. People are like,
and it's like the top and bottom, they're just like black screen, and you're like, what are you doing right now? But that same video,
Mom, get this ad off my phone.
That same video could play great, exactly, on YouTube or something, where you're always going to be looking at that 16:9 on the screen. It fits perfectly, and it lays great. So it might not be that your video is bad, but you have not optimized it for the platform where it's going to be seen. And that is the number one thing that just gets somebody to skip immediately, is if they see a TikTok optimized video on YouTube or a YouTube optimized video on TikTok or anything like that, where it's like, it's the content's all the same.
Right.
It's just the shape you're delivering it in. And if like if somebody was bringing you a birthday cake and they set it on your front porch and it was in a lovely wrap box with a bow, you're like, I'd love to open this. But if it was in like a big pile of raw meat, you're like, I don't really want to dig through the raw meat to find the cake in here. I'm sorry. You shouldn't have delivered the meat to my house. We try not to deliver the meat to your house, I think is the way we want to end the podcast.
Totally. And another hot tip on that is we deliver all kinds of meats. That's the thing. Beef jerky. No, I'm kidding, not. But
it is like for TikTok, say, an influencer style ad is going to work 100 times better than your regular CTA ad.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's just, that's the form of the structure over there. That is what it's built around. It's about people speaking to other people. And while it is enormously fake and weird, it does, like, if you're a 12-year-old on there watching stuff, when someone is selling to you who is 40 versus someone selling to you who's 20. It just feels different. There's a different language. And so having a product that might reach that audience and then having it sold to them by someone who fits in their categorization of, this is the person who should be selling to me on this platform. That's like the number one mistake I see all the time is people trying to sell in old ways on new platforms and not understanding how much, honestly, damage that does to your brand, because these are potential customers. Maybe some of them are too young maybe to be buying your product, but they will be aging, and their first interaction with you is always this poorly optimized, terrible video on their phone they looked at that makes them go like, oh, grandpa got the TikTok login and now he's making this crazy
uploading
shit.
videos.
And we hate it too because we see, it's people just wasting money.
It's throwing your money away. You bought the ad space, you made the video.
You could have done something great.
And then you wrapped it up in raw meat and no one wants it.
I'm sorry. And another thing, because we've done so many of these and we watch for conversion, like if say you're on a meta platform, like we'll create the video like in a different aspect ratio, bring it down to 4:3, put a title that qualifies the audience as they're scrolling, and then subtitles underneath. And we've seen that like explode.
You see that a lot, on Facebook and Instagram are those, we call it a meme wrap, but it's essentially adding text to top and bottom in these areas that would normally be dead space. But just adding something, because 90% of people scrolling through these feeds do not have volume turned on for their ads. Nobody's like, oh, great, now this is screaming at me from the bottom, like when I turn on Netflix or whatever. They like being able to scroll past and immediately go, okay, I see up top what they're selling. The text is at the bottom. I'll read this for 3 or 4 seconds. Because our big thing is like, hey, stop the skip, grab their eyes in that first 5 seconds. Hopefully that then starts, all right, I'll click into the thing and listen to the rest of it.
Yeah, for sure. And on different platforms, one thing that really plays is, on Facebook, you can watch like a 10-minute cooking show. You know what I mean? Like someone might, like on TikTok, it's got to be like, pow, you know what I mean? Like, and it could be more user generated. On YouTube, you can have longer form content. Like we've had like someone do like a sales video about, a check weighing machine, and people watched for like 27 minutes.
Strange.
And we were looking at it and we're like, that's a serious buyer right there. You know what I mean? Like that's someone who's going to buy your machine.
Minutes.
I'm like, who is that like engineer-minded individual? And I want them like, that's the person who eats first in the village. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, that's an intelligent person. 27 minutes, like that's the person who has control over themselves, like the dopamine is not,
But if you said it out loud, like we have a 27-minute ad for a check weighing machine,
everybody checks out already.
That's the worst idea I've ever heard in my life. But like, it's just about knowing the platform. It's about knowing who's going to be seeing it. And you'd be surprised at the kind of things that convert depending on the platform.
Yeah. And the reason we got to that 27-minute, because we were creating shorter forms that were completing the video. So we're like, oh, let's give them a little bit more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, let's talk a little bit more.
And you're like,
like 27 minutes. It's like Scorsese. No, leave it in.
3 hours.
The movie. It's 3.5 hours long, But I love you, Scorsese, by the way.
I'm sure you're watching.
Yeah, I'm sure you're watching. You are one of the 27 views.
Really excited.
And I love you.
So how can marketers measure the effectiveness of their video content?
Yeah, a few ways. I think, most importantly, we like in the upfront will get key metrics for success, right?
Okay.
Like what are the KPIs we're trying to
in that beginning meeting that you guys were talking about during the process.
And like people will say, we want brand awareness. We want people, it's like, but we know you want
Right.
sales and leads.
Exactly,
We know what you
Yeah.
want, and you
Yeah.
for us, it like everybody.
Let's cut the crap.
Yeah.
You don't have to lie to us.
Yeah.
We're on the inside with you,
Yeah.
hopefully.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have to sell to us.
Yeah, and we make television commercials as well, so that's a different formula. Like those television commercials are forced upon a person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
you must watch this for the exchange of getting to watch the NBA finals.
Yeah.
So they're like, okay, we'll watch this commercial. But when we're creating digital ads, like you've got 3 seconds of my time. We're like
Mhm.
we're all like beautiful women online. Like you know what I mean? We're like, what are you selling?
Yeah.
Like it better be quick and it better be good. Okay, you've got me. Like it has to be fantastic right off the jump.
But defining that success
Yeah.
is really important because there are so many of those companies that will give a broad thing of like, we just want to promote brand awareness. And you're like, there is no way for me to tell you that we accomplish that. We can make you 2 times as big as you are now. And you're still like, I know there's some people who don't know about the product, and you're like, well, great point. You're not gonna become Jesus, Coke, or McDonald's right tomorrow. You know,
Mhm.
so being able to define that by saying like, well, we want to extend our potential customer base to this percentage point, or we want to get this click through rate, or we want to have this many potential hires coming through.
Yeah.
Having those things hard designed and hard, set before we ever get into the process means that we can write for that.
Yeah.
And when we're able to, we like to say this at the company, but like 90% of all problems in video content are solved before you get on set.
Really?
100%.
Okay.
Because one, video creation is it's pushing a giant boulder up a hill, and everybody just keeps like trying to push you over all the time with little problems. And you're like, if I can just get this to the top of the hill. And then once it's up there, you realize the other side, it just goes right back down. And you're like, oh no. But like, what we try to do by having all of these successes defined beforehand is that the content we're going to create is going to aim at not just accomplishing that, but hopefully accomplishing it by also with also giving you options to test and say, this one accomplished it. This one goes even farther than that.
Yeah.
Let's work on that basis. And to say, okay, before we get on set and we have this issue where the product's going to be put here on a table, how are we going to frame that to make it work? Let's write it so it's in their hand.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes a whole lot more sense. Like there are all these small issues that really only occur to you with experience.
Mhm.
It's one of those, if you're an early video person who's a PA on set or whatever, you'll see a million things that you're like, I never thought about that in 1,000 years you could have given me. I just never would have thought about that light having to move this way and how it's giving a reflection off this guy's bald head. I did not think about that, But when you have a lot of experience in the realm and have worked with a lot of different companies over a lot of different industries, eventually you sort of just get this tool belt of solutions where you're like, I've seen this before, here's the fix. I've seen that before, here's the fix. You become a really well-learned doctor of video, essentially,
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people make mistakes. One of the big mistakes that people will make, like, they'll be editing their video on this massive screen, and they'll be shooting video on this massive screen. And like, this is how people are experiencing your content.
It's a little phone.
Like, we shoot minded for the phone. 90%, 95% of all the experiences are going to come through mobile.
Yeah.
So we shoot tight. Our reaction shots are tight. Product shots are tight. There's an establishing shot, but there's drone shots occasionally, these types of things. But it's a much more intimate shooting style that we've seen. And then when we're watching other people's content, we can tell like, oh, this is not optimized for
this
mobile.
was meant for a TV
This
screen.
is a TV commercial, and like it's a different thing.
I didn't even think about that, like shooting wide, and then most people obviously are looking at it on their phone. So I didn't even think
your
about
average
something.
medium shot is way too wide for a phone.
You can't get facial recognition, and it takes you out of it.
Yeah.
100%. And it feels, honestly, if you were to watch a mobile theme commercial on a TV, you'd be like, this is weirdly pushed up against their face.
Yeah.
That's about
like-
optimization. It's
Like
about
my driver's license photo.
Exactly.
That's
Where
what-
you're just like, oh,
Even product, like if you're shooting product on TV, it's like you'll dress it up and then you'll kind of shoot wide and you'll float across it. For mobile, for shooting digital stuff, we will come in much closer to make sure people see the detail.
You got to think about a square aspect ratio.
Yeah.
You got to think like this thing should be filling more than 50% of the screen because on that screen, it's going to be half an inch tall.
Yeah.
So
and if you're doing reels too, I mean, like we just did a project for a great company called Duro Green, which is an outdoor furniture company. And we had to take within aspect ratios. Okay, we're making hero shots for the website. So it's like we are shooting in a widescreen aspect ratio.
And just for everyone at home, a hero shot is that, that perfect product shot where the camera's slowly moving in on a bowl of Cheerios on the table and you're like, oh my God, these Cheerios. That's your hero shot.
Right.
And you want to have that with almost any product, any brand. You want one of those shots that if you were to watch it in a movie theater, you'd be like, well, goddamn, okay, this has some production value behind it.
Yeah.
But with this particular product, we knew that they were going to be using some of that ultra-wide footage with those heroes, but most of it is going to be in a 1x1 square. So we have to set up every single one of those shots beforehand, knowing that the product has to be perfectly within this window, and the shot itself needs to be so wide, and the set has to be decorated so that we're doing only one shot, but it fits with two forms. And that's just like, again, one of those problems you solve by having experience. It's not something that you can really think about until you've had that problem on set where you're like, wait a minute, this is going to look terrible. We should have thought about this before. And that's the 90% of stuff that gets solved way before you even get to a set, way before you have that final shoot.
Yeah. We were, and that was an AmericanEagle.com client and project. So we were able to give, Wayne and the team here, Wayne was the project manager, a library of content to be able to make,
use on the site. And
Exactly.
really kind of make an immersive experience. So this was an interesting story where we had to shoot outdoor furniture in January, right? And it was like in Chicago. So we were like, what are we going to do?
So you didn't use your backyard.
We didn't use our backyard.
They didn't want their chairs sitting in gray slush with frowning people looking over the fence.
Just
seasonal depression.
God,
like,
horrible.
What, And so what we did, we went to, our a soundstage and created an outdoor environment, putting down grass and, having trees, and created an outdoor environment that was inside that was just tasteful enough to know, okay, we are showing that we're outside. This is set decorated to be outside, but we're highlighting the furniture. So really the furniture becomes such a focal point of the piece. But even, it really worked out.
Even in that setup, like a problem that you wouldn't think about beforehand unless you've dealt with it before is when you get into that studio going like, it looks too much like we're trying to pretend this is outside.
People
you have to find this golden medium of people know we're on a soundstage, but we're showing what this furniture looks like next to natural pieces. And you never want people to think they're trying to trick me here, because we're not tricking them. They are smarter. They know what they're looking at. But you also don't want to go so hard into the soundstage where they're like, this is the most alien piece of furniture I've ever seen in my life, just sitting in a white void. So finding that perfect sort of like half creative setup, and we worked with some great set designers and crafters on that day who they were moving in like single glasses of like pink Chardonnay to be like, that's too much. Bring it out. Bring it out. Like, that's where it has to be. Put a ring on right there where a coffee cup used to be. That's perfect. That's perfect.
I feel like I watched a testimonial video for this one. The wiping the wine.
That kind of stuff where you're like, you wouldn't believe how much like that shot gets you miles of attention online because everybody's wiped something off of something and looks at it and goes, that looked easy. Wow, let's do that.
And I mean, even the wine stains are a massive problem for many people.
Right.
Did that at my parents' house
included.
Some people more than others.
Exactly. We're artists, remember.
Yeah.
So what are some emerging trends in video that marketers should be aware of to stay ahead of the competition as well as captivate their audiences?
I don't know if it's a trend, but leveraging Facebook and YouTube and all of these platforms to help you prospect new clients in an entertaining way and retarget them with pieces of content to move them down the sales funnel, to build your pixel and to really scale your business is like what is really working right now. I mean, we work with a lot of clients who they don't start off that big and they're making a lot of money, and selling a lot of product by leveraging these platforms. And I feel like sometimes some of these, even like business to business, we have found that even just a little bit of comedy and personality when it comes to a dry piece, they think like, oh, well, we could never, do that. But adding just like a little bit is like cuts you through the clutter, stops the scroll and gives you a lot more bang for your buck. Where creating something that's a bit dull is riskier, so I feel like, leveraging what is available now in the Meta platform.
And that's more like really on the data and technical side of things, which is hugely important. But I think, at least from the creative side, the number one thing that I've noticed over the past few years, and that I think will only become, I don't know, more prevalent, is it's Meta, but in a different way. It's not the Facebook platform. It's the actual idea of like people in ads and people at companies letting you know that they know that's an ad, you know, and like speaking directly to consumers in a more honest way. I think the new generation of consumers and audience are very, very well media trained. They've grown up their entire lives on social media. They've never, a lot of them have never seen TV ads because they don't watch regular TV.
Cable,
they have Netflix. When they say, let's watch TV, they're talking about Netflix, right? And so the way that people need to change their ads slightly, I think, is being very honest with them, because they are, honestly, those 12, 13-year-old kids on TikTok are smarter about media than any of us. Like they are so good. And when they get into the system, it's going to be insane what happens after that. I have no idea. That'll be 10 years from now. Anyway, we'll do another podcast then. But like for now, I think it's about understanding like that the power relationship between advertiser and consumer has changed. The consumer is no longer completely uninformed out in the middle of nowhere, just being like, wow, a magic eraser, you know, like now it's a person who goes like, yeah, I saw a TikTok chain about how the magic eraser is actually bad for the environment, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, okay, so be honest.
Everything's bad for the environment.
Everything's bad for the environment. Newsflash, guys, we ruined it. I'm sorry, it's over. Ominous music cue right there, Brian. But like, it's about being honest and talking to them about your actual unique sales proposition, which if you have, that's all you really need, because people do need products to solve problems. And if you can say, here's my product, here's why it's this price, and here's the problem it fixes, that's all I need to tell you. That's it. Like, I think one of the first ones was that Harry's Razor ad from a while ago. It was funny. It was the talking. It changed a lot of what ads look like today is now a lot more direct to camera, direct to consumer. But what they also did was they were honest about production costs in that. And I think that was something that jumped them hugely in front of competition, was just being honest about the fact that like, it doesn't cost us this much to make this. We're not going to charge you that much to have it. And so many industries are sort of that, you know, horizontal monopoly factor of like, well, we're all going to raise our prices quietly and no one has to be angry about this. That when one competitor steps in and is honest with the consumer, it shakes up everything and changes everything. So I think that disruption is coming. And so to get in front of it, it's scary to be a marketer, but be honest. You just got to be honest.
I like that a lot.
And one thing that everyone talks about emerging trends in this, and like AI. What's AI? We're using artificial intelligence, and it's like what unites us is pain. Right? The pain of the human experience. The fact that you know you're going to die. You know what I mean? Like, have this awareness. These machines don't have that. You know what I mean? Like, we know we're going to die. And that that pain and that we're all moving away from collects us. And the human element of that, like, when it comes to comedy and comes to connecting people, like, it's going to be a while before AI is going to understand that you're going to hold your mom's hand one day when it's elderly. You know what I'm saying? And you're like, you know, it's like
there are things that it cannot understand. And don't get me wrong, I'm not a Luddite who believes that we'll never make, you know, great moves in AI or in technology moving forward. But I do think I completely understand people wanting to put barriers in place in the industry, especially creative industries, especially copy, which a lot of us have worked in, because AI is getting pretty good at very simple copy of like, it's summertime, beat the heat with, and it's like, it understands that. But we are leagues and bounds away from it having the mastery over the English language or any language to be able to pull off simple wit. It is insane how bad it is at some things that you would say like a 12-year-old is better than you at this. And so like, I would say, while you always want to try and stay ahead, don't put all your eggs in that basket yet. You know, like maybe one day in the future when we're all in pods, throw all your eggs at that AI guy. But like right now, it is more of an interesting tool than it is a thing that will disrupt the entire industry tomorrow. Maybe in 10 years, Possibly. But right now, focus on what you know can work and follow the trends that you see online. Don't just say AI buzzwords are happening. They're on every podcast. I have to get behind it. ChatGPT is now the only thing that writes my copy.
Yeah.
And you know what's going to happen is that your brand will sound like literally every other brand.
Yeah, it's going to sound like a computer.
Because that's where it gets its information from, is every other brand
it's
on the
machine
internet.
learning. It doesn't ever create something new. It can only iterate off of things you've told it, which means that Harry's ad we talked about earlier, or any of these new style ads that you see on TikTok, would never come out of an AI because they hadn't been done before. So the AI would not be able to think of it.
Yeah.
And that's like one of those things that I think it can feel really scary to have people talk about it and whatnot. And especially if you're a business owner, you don't want to be like left out on these things.
Yeah.
But like, take a deep breath. It's Skynet is not yet here. It's okay. One day the robots will destroy the world. But for now, just make a funny video where you're honest with your audience and you can do pretty well until the apocalypse.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit before about not optimizing for mobile, but what are some other mistakes people make when shooting video content?
I said the biggest mistake people make when shooting video content is boring, right?
Yes.
Like boring will put you out of business.
Yeah.
Boring will burn your marketing budget. Like boring will hurt you and your family and your business and you know
and everything you've ever loved.
Everything you've ever loved.
Yeah.
It will hurt. It will but like in boring, it can mean a lot of things too. Boring in the first 3 to 5 seconds of your video is like the biggest sin. Inexcusable sin. And we create multiple openings to make sure that we mitigate the risks of doing that. But if you're not shooting on something that is visually catching off the jump, we're talking about social media marketing here, you know. But if it is boring, you will burn your budget. And really, to have an expectation of an internal team to be like, oh, this is my writing staff.
Yes.
You know what I mean? To have reasonable expectations of your internal staff. If you're like, I'm going to do marketing, but I'm going to have Greg do it, and like Greg's got a camera and like you're expecting Greg to like.
Greg has a full-time job. It's not like you're taking away Greg's clients so he can make you a video. You're just like, well, throw it on top, right?
Yeah.
It's a video. It's underestimating the amount of work that actually goes in from a firm's point of view, like the amount of writing, the amount of work, the amount of data that we analyze, like all of that stuff is multiple full-time jobs. And to just think that you can throw it internally is a huge mistake. And also, to bounce back to that boring factor, like you said, boring means different things in different industries. If you're talking about that machine company that we talked about earlier, like boring for them is incredibly boring for the rest of us.
Yeah. And we need to like do inserts. We need to keep it moving. Like
so
different
like
shots.
Interesting for them is boring for a lot of us. You know, so like making sure that you have that realistic expectation of like, this is the industry, this is what people will normally put up with in an ad, and this is the absolute lowest you can go in terms of content and speed that you're pushing through in a video. That's important to know. But it also, remember all the time that what you think is boring is way more boring for other people, and what you think is interesting is probably not that interesting to other people.
Yeah.
Especially your customer base who didn't go to school for the thing you're selling, who hasn't been in a million meetings for it, who doesn't know every aspect of how it's gotten to the place it is. They're a blank slate. And for you to just come in and start telling them like data, you're just going to lose them immediately. And so boring, I think, is something that cannot be understated when it comes to content. And it sounds so like, obviously you don't want to make it boring, but again, it's just the definition of it. A regular C-suite, executive is going to look at some videos and be like, this kicks butt. This thing's really going to rule out there, huh, gang?
Good job, Craig.
And like anyone in the marketing department will go like, this is trash. Like we cannot put this out there because it is so boring. And also never underestimate the amount that people like hearing their own voice. You understand, I get that. And as we all speak for hours on this podcast, we love our own voices. We love hearing ourselves talk. And oftentimes clients can misinterpret how interesting they are. And I'm not in no way to throw shade. Most people aren't interesting, myself included. Most of the time, I'm not that interesting. I'm just walking around and eating a banana or something.
And slipping on it.
I'm putting, that's right. We're getting there. But like, so if you are making a video and it's just you talking to your client, I know that feels like, oh, I'm just like everybody else out there. I'm that interesting, charismatic boss. You probably aren't. And that's not a bad thing. You might be very good at these other things. Don't be afraid to hire talent who is specifically very good at speaking on camera, who's very specifically good at writing a joke on set on the day to solve a problem. Like, these are all skills. These are huge career paths. And just because you're like, well, sometimes I'm kind of funny at client dinners, I'm sorry, but that's not what it's going to take to make a good ad. And having those realistic expectations, I think, is something that just needs to be drilled into every person everywhere in every business in America.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the writing process and post-production process are two extremely undervalued from clients' perspective. Like Stu was saying, 90% of all issues can be solved in writing. Like, the writing is such a critical part of what we're doing. And then in post-production, you know,
that's where the other 10% are solved.
Yeah. Where it's like, you know, like a good edit can really tighten up something, and we can really make people, you know, look interesting. You know, we can extrapolate the best story and the best content if we're doing a business to business video with enough footage and a story to keep people engaged, to move them along. So post-production is really a skill. And if you say, okay, Greg's gonna edit this in turn, like, we do thousands of videos that are like, you know what I mean? Like, we make stuff where we're looking at it and we'll talk to our editors and be like, no, that ain't it, chief. You know what I mean? Like, we got this has to clip. Sometimes we speed people's voices. Like, we have to visually show things to keep it moving. You know, there's a lot of different elements in post-production. Graphically.
And again, a lot of those are things that are only learned with experience. It's putting up a video and saying, why doesn't this feel right to me? And then taking 6 frames off the end of some shot and being like, now it feels right to me. That's something that takes a lot of time, school, work to actually figure out, and is not something that your average viewer can tell you what the problem is. But the average viewer can identify that it's a problem, that there is a problem in there.
But
they have no idea what the solution is, but they're just like, why doesn't this feel good? And I feel like that's the number one note you hear from clients all the time, is sort of like, this just doesn't feel right. Because they don't have the language to describe what those issues
like articulate what they're feeling about it, but they're like, I just know something's
what's
off.
the solution to that? It's trusting your creative team that you're hiring. You're hiring them for a reason, and hopefully they have the resume and background to back those things up. But when they say, this shot works a whole lot better here and reads a whole lot better here, just because you're like, I don't know. Trust them. Just trust them. I promise you, they are trying to make the best possible video, because it also reflects on them. It's not just your business that's on the line. It's also that video production firm who's going, we're essentially just giving you a showcase of our editors, our writers, our videographers, our actors. Everybody is essentially on the line here. So we're going to try and give you the best possible product we can possibly give you. And for you to say like, well, I'm not sure if this is 100% right. Don't get me wrong. Give a few notes, be active in that editing part, but in the final decisions, listen to your creatives.
Like, we are obsessed with this. You know what I'm saying? Like, our standards our standards are higher than probably yours are. You know what I mean?
Yes, I guarantee you they are.
You know, for our own work, when we put it out, it has our name on it, and just our peers, our group, each other, the standard is very high, where like, nothing pains me more than to see like a few frames of something holding too long. You know what I mean? Like, we'll notice. It's like running. We're trained enough and done enough of these where we can run our hands over a piece of wood and feel the nail. You know what I mean? Or feel the splinter and know, oh, there it is. Okay, we need it. Like, let's
I think
smooth that
if there's
out.
one person in this room who understands, it's Brian on the boards right now. Everybody listening at home is probably like, the audio is very, very crisp. And I bet Brian will listen to this and go like, I can hear that pop.
Why
there
do
it
you keep
is.
tapping on the
Stop touching the table. Stop touching the table. Like, it's those things that essentially, I mean, we don't like to say it all the time, but it is an art. Like, it is art, and there is taste involved with it, and that is what you're paying for, is someone who is so good at their job and is obsessed with making it perfect. So listen to them, because the obsessives, hopefully most of the time, are not crazy with what they're saying. You know, that didn't make a whole lot of sense. Obsessives are crazy a lot of the times. But we like you, and we want to make ads for your company.
So I feel like you guys throughout this entire episode have given really great advice for people, you know, starting out on their video journey. But what's one piece of advice from both of you that you want people, you know, to take away from this?
I'm biased because I am a writer, but writing. It's 100% writing. Everything is writing, and it's really easy to think, okay, we have the concept for this, we have a few jokes, we're ready to go. You're so not. You are so like you are so at the
Just gonna
first
let you know
step.
you're not.
You are standing at the bottom of the Spanish stair, and you're just like one step up, and you're like, we're done. You're not. You have so many more steps to climb.
Yeah.
And again, like I said, that 90% solve rate before you even hit the set is on your writer's back. They are thinking and solving problems with a script that you will not consider until it is way too late to solve them. And so hiring a good writer, and I think listening to them when they have concerns about things. Don't get me wrong, as a writer, oftentimes I'll be on a set and I'm like, they're not saying the joke the way I want them to say the joke.
Yeah.
And to be honest, sometimes the cinematographer or director has to go, shut up, that doesn't matter right now. We got to make our day. Exactly. But the director knows that because he's worked on enough sets to say, I know how we're going to solve that. Don't even worry about it. It's already taken care of. It's not because we don't want to listen to that problem. It's because I have a tool in my belt that can fix it.
Yeah.
So I just think you cannot put enough, and again, I'm a writer, enough money and enough time into your writer's pocket to get a good product. Like, people want to think that like there's a creative director who is on top of all of this thing. And really, it's all coming top down from them. It's the other way around. It's all from the bottom up to the top. And eventually that person can craft a great product for you, a great video. But if you don't have the writing, that foundation, it's a house of cards. It's going to fall over.
Absolutely.
And people will notice. And it, again, is burning your money. You're just throwing it out the window at that point. And just because you wanted to save like an extra $200 on your writer for an extra half day.
Yeah.
Pay them, get a good product, because this is an investment in the end. And it's the only investment in the world where if you put in more money, most of the time you get more money back. Like it does pay out. I know it sounds like, fraud or something, but you have a guaranteed return on these things. Make a good product. People will watch.
No, and I'll double down on that, because I'm involved in the writing process as well. That we also too, within the needs analysis of understanding where we're going, when you're working with an experienced production company, it's like if you're going up Everest, because we've done thousands of projects, we're starting at base camp. Like when you're starting from scratch, you might die to get to base camp. You know what I mean? Like you will run out of money, you'll run out of water, Greg's gonna leave, you know what I mean? Like the CEO is gonna be like, where's the goddamn project? Like we need to sell these things. We got fourth quarter coming up. You're like, you're just dying to get to base camp, where we've already started there, where we know where all the trees are, and and we know what to look out for. And from our process, we have a process in place, a 5-step production process. And in the upfront and the creative brief, we make sure to like mitigate your risk, to make sure we're keeping it clear. We're making sure we're stopping the skip. We're making sure to keep the pacing of your video. There's a lot of rhythm to this. There's ancillary pieces that are created in addition to your top of the funnel pieces to kind of retarget people. There's a process there, that's been, that you're not the first project we've worked on, start at base camp. If you're going to Everest, then to like start on your own. There
is no shame in getting a head start. By working with people who have already dealt with the issues that you don't know about.
And we're like little Sherpas. You know what I mean? We got the cans on us. We're like, don't. And we're like little Buddhists too.
And we're just like, a big problem will come along and we'll be like, and such is life. We'll figure it out. We're not going to freak out because we've dealt with this kind of stuff before. It's just like, if people were coming to American Eagle, they wouldn't just want to like, meet with a day one dev and be like, so what, how do websites work? They come here because there's an expectation of quality, experience, and a wisdom that comes with lots of time dealing with problems, experiencing problems, and solving them. And that's like what we give to you at a fraction of the price.
Yes.
So this is my last question, and yes, I'm going to ask you guys to plug your company right now. You've helped us plug, AmericanEagle.com, and I'm grateful that you guys could come on here. So tell me, what is the difference between Burn the Boats and other video production companies? What do you want people to know about you guys? If they don't already know, right?
Do you want to say it on 3?
If they've made it to the end.
It's 3, 2, 1. It's creative.
Yes.
The number one thing we focus on at the company is having good creative, because believe it or not, there are schools and colleges you can go to learn all the marketing necessities you need to make a successful campaign. And then the second you hit the video production part, I'm sorry, but you can go to a school and learn how to actually turn on a camera. But if you don't find good creative, none of that matters. It's all just thrown out the window. If you don't know how to tell a good joke, if you don't know how to quickly grab attention, none of it matters. It's just throwing away money. So again, I know it sounds like an echo of the writing piece, but it's not just your writers, it's your cinematographer, it's your director, it's your actors, all of these people who do skills that are, I personally like to believe that you are born with some talent to do these things and you can work on them and get better. But there are some folks who aren't born with those talents. They have other talents and they should do those things. But like, you have to find the people who have those talents and who can work for you and bless your project with this wonderful artistic fairy dust, you know? And that's hopefully what we are able to provide while still having some of those analytical brains on the team who are able to say, all right, we've got a lot of dust on here, guys. Let's also plug in the formula, you know? Yeah. So for me, it's all about creative.
Yeah, 100%. I'm sold. You know, I got like a tear. I got emotional. I'm like, that's great. No, for sure. And you know, I would say the biggest difference too is like, there's a lot of production companies out there in the world. Like, and you know, like you can look at a beautiful image and it, you know, so what? You know, like it's like, all right, that's a beautiful image. And maybe, you know, that does have its value, but we're not a point and shoot company. Like we create the strategy behind it. We create we create the process of what it is, you know, we're trying to accomplish. So it's really more the creation of the strategy behind why we are creating this ad. And like we hire the best, we have the best cinematographers. We have, you know, we shoot on red cinema prime lenses. Like we have that production value. It's like what Stu is saying, it's up the channel a bit to know how is this going to make you more money? Yeah. You know, like how are we going to sell more products, get more leads, you know, all those pieces to it. So there's a lot of production companies out there that'll say, okay, we're going to come out, we're going to interview you guys. And you know what I mean? There's a lot. And then it's almost like the same iterative things that you see. And it's like, man, people are spending so much money on like this boring stuff that like waste money.
Well, there's a lot of money in that space, and there's a lot of executives who are willing to just be like, yeah, I gave them a great interview and they gave me a video with some rising music at the end and it looked fine. There's our logo. It did great. There's a million companies that'll do that. So like, but if you actually want good creative that will take in all of that data and those problems and all of those things that we learned in that creative questionnaire up top, like you want to come out to a good creative firm, and that's burn the boats. You know, we can toot our own horn a little bit. That is what we do best is say, oh, here's your unique selling proposition. Here are the pain points for your customers. Here's who you really want to talk to. Here's exactly how we're going to meet all of those. And it won't even feel like we're trying. It'll just feel like a funny video that you're like, wow, and my product's in there too. And it is talking about the pain point. And I guess that does talk about what's great about the product. It's a magic trick. And unfortunately, you have to hire magicians to do magic tricks. Your nephew might want to become a magician. He's not a good magician, man. Leave your nephew at home.
Yeah. And I would put us up creatively with anybody in the world. Yes. Like if you think your ad agency is not doing a good job, we will do a free creative pitch, you know, and cage match fight them. You know what I mean?
So confident that we're like, if we can get in the room and talk to you about some ideas we have,
we will.
99% of the time, the person is going to be like, that's a better idea. Wow,
yeah. Like I think we are in the top 3% of people who do that. I mean, I've sold, you know, multiple shows to Comedy Central and have written for CBS, and Stu does
I'm on stage all around
town, you know, and then all of that creative like comedy background, but then also too the breadth of work that we've executed that actually sold stuff. You know what I mean? That like we're scaling companies with this. We're taking smaller businesses and like scaling them. You know, like we're solving a lot of unique issues, but yeah, when it comes to creative writing, that like and having your ad dollars like get stretched, like having people watch it in like a digital space where they're not bored, and you're like, oh, like we can do that. I would feel comfortable to do that, to compete with anybody in the world.
Yes, you heard that right, Leo Burnett.
Yes.
Come meet us in the parking lot. We're going to be swinging chains.
Yeah. And I'm not even kidding. We would destroy them. You know, we would embarrass them in front of their parents.
Yeah, bring your parents.
Bring your parents to the schoolyard on top of the hill.
They're definitely not proud of you at Leo Burnett. Your parents.
Yeah. But your 401k package is pretty great.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? I will say.
Actually, let's talk.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, you guys. This was awesome. I learned a lot. I know our listeners will learn a lot too. And I had a great time.
Thank you for having us. I appreciate it.
It was an absolute pleasure. And I can't overstate it enough. Brian in the room. Total
Brian
pro.
on the board.
Yeah, Brian on the board. Do we have a camera for you?
Yeah, right here.
Yeah, let's put Brian on the board here
give
so
a
we can
little-
say.
Just do like a little shaka.
There we are. This is the actual. Yes.
That's where the money is made,
That's
baby.
the brains
That's the creative
behind
we're
the
talking
whole-
about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much for having us.
Take care.
Thank you for listening to Modern Marketing Messages. For more information about the topic discussed today, check out the description of this episode. If you like this episode, follow the podcast wherever you listen to stay up to date with us. While you're at it, give us a rating and share this podcast with others. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Modern Marketing Messages. This episode is brought to you by AmericanEagle.com Studios. I'm Taylor Karg, and I'll be back with another Modern Marketing Message.